First off, I would like to thank Jon Favreau for almost single-handedly making Star Wars watchable again. This just proves that by not producing crepes willy-nilly and giving a franchise to someone that cares about it makes for a far better product. Also, that and Jar Jar Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy should never have been let anywhere near the franchise. Darth Mouse has shown some ability to make decent decisions, like letting Feige, a guy that actually cares about the Marvel franchise, run all things associated with that franchise, to make a coherent whole, and I, for one, would like the same treatment for Star Wars. But where to go now? And is it possible to work within these Badlands to reclaim what was lost? Or do we just burn it to the ground and start all over again? Break for intro. Now that the Skywalker family drama story has finally come to us, let's go with divisive conclusion, and released us from that horror, what's left for that galaxy far, far away? Many have mourned the loss of many great storylines, some far better than the slop we have been fed, to the official canon, turning these stories to mere legends, which can have its uses. No history is as clean as the books say, after all, and because of the legend status, many of these can be returned in some fashion. Perhaps not as originally intended, but adapted to be a far better product. Yes, we can have a new Jedi Order, a rogue squadron, a clone of Palpatine that actually makes sense, and show a fall of Skywalker that actually makes some sense, a la Heir to the Empire, an enemy from the unknown regions, and more, if we are smart about it. Some would like the new trilogy Abomination to be made non-canon, a dark legend that is better left alone. Disney has proven the power and desire to change history before, with hundreds of books and stories that, as established, were far better and much more interesting. That would be a simple way out, and while I do enjoy the idea of erasing Jar Jar's legacy, it's just not right, and we can do better. Some are calling for it to be made into an alternate reality of the galaxy far, far away, a realm ruled by Aboleth, no doubt. And while that is an option, and it would open up the possibility of far more stories, a Star Wars multiverse would be cool. There is yet another option that is a far smoother transition and is not even a true retcon. When the House of Mouse declared most of the galaxy's stories to be non-canon, we lost quite a bit. A new Jedi Order, not one, but 3 solo kids, an enemy that would actually threaten the Jedi, and my personal worst-case scenario, the loss of Mara Jade. And while others are talking about how the Mandalorian TV series currently on Disney Plus could return her to canon, I would like to propose a slightly different scenario. A brand new trilogy centered around the Outer Rim and the aftermath of the First Disorder. And if we actually plan ahead, guess what? Things could actually make sense. Like any good story, we would have to start by laying the groundwork, planning ahead, making sure everyone is aware of the stakes, and actually include all the needed story in the actual movie. No mystery boxes, which may be good for a TV series where you have many episodes and, if you're good at it, many years to get the point across, and you also have the duty to stretch things out. That is simply not the case with a movie where you have to make things succinct and self-contained. Yes, one can have threads that dangle at the edge of the film, but major plot points are at least addressed in the movie itself, not a book that comes out months after the fact that contains all the backstory needed to understand the movie that really only super nerds would read. In movies, flashbacks are wonderful things, if done right. With that in mind, we need a good foundation. So I submit a news trilogy, starting with Star Wars X, the Jade Cannon. We could have the following backstory. Following the Emperor's first death, Mara Jade was compelled to kill Luke, as in Legends, which she reluctantly attempted to do, by luring Luke to the Mercure system, which is a unique planet, and on that planet, attempting to ambush him. After barely surviving the resulting kerfluffle, Luke interrogates her on the Emperor's plans, hoping to stop the First Order in its tracks, so he could train his new Padawans in peace. Due to the Salamir's ability to repel the Force, and once the adrenaline wore off and she had a moment to reflect, Mara was no longer compelled to kill Luke, and she was able to answer earnestly, while in the bubble of a Yalzamir, at which point she admitted she didn't know the Emperor's plans, nor why she was still compelled to kill Skywalker after the Emperor's death. For all she knew, he was dead, and she would forever be compelled to kill him, if she was exposed again to the Force. Now, it is important to note that in Legends, there was a clone of Sidious. The story, Heir to the Empire, expands on Luke's fall and return from the dark side, in addition to the Emperor's return, in a far more coherent way. So I didn't have a particular problem with that specific aspect of the mostly Carp trilogy. Tangent aside, Mara, knowing she didn't want to have the darkness in her heart, especially to that level, she chose to remain on the planet under the influence of a Salamir pet she named Sheev, to remind her of what she used to be and how the darkness can consume even the brightest light of any unweary Force user. As a true child of the Mandalorian blood, what? Now, I know classically she is not a Mandalorian, but many ships have already sailed, and there is a reason I would retcon this. With the skills of the Jedi, Sith, and Mandalorian, including an ability to plan far into the future, even without Force powers, this would make Mara a force to be reckoned with. Also, as Favreau has proven, Mandalorians are cool. Anyway, Mara now makes her living protecting and guiding various mining and hunting enterprises on the planet, which is largely ignored by the galaxy. Either the First Order or the New Republic, none of the major powers really cared about it. Not to mention, on this planet, there could be a great many stories, and we could avoid the whole Mary Sue label that was plastered all over Rey. And with all of this, we would have a way to tie in all the movies and series and books that are still considered canon, and some that are not. Many years pass. Now, as the movie begins, decades later, we follow a band of neo-Mandalorians who bear a decisively non-Mandalorian crest, and they attack the outpost in which Mara lives. Mara is, of course, obliged to defend it, as it is her livelihood and home. And in this way, we could have action as the movie begins to kick things into high gear from the get-go. And during this protracted battle, Sheev is killed. But with the Emperor truly dead this time, the compulsion to destroy Luke is totally gone. Now, when we butter all of this up with liberal flashbacks, even a casual fan would know what the hell is going on. Anyway, relieved that she can actually have a life now, Mara seeks out Luke and learns of his final moments, and the state of the galaxy as a whole. This would have been a much better Where's Skywalker story than The Farce Awakens, and would actually make sense. In her search, she learns these not quite Neo-Mandalorians are actually agents of the Praetoriat Vong, a race of non-Force touching life forms from another galaxy, or perhaps the unknown regions now. And Mara realizes the darkness that consumed her master was now returning to finish with the galaxy at large, and she was the only one with any training and enough knowledge to do anything about it. While Poe, Finn, and Lando and the rest attempt to build a new republic from the scattered remnants of 4 consecutive galactic wars, and Rey, knowing she has skills and raw, untrained power as excessive as it was, but no real training or a living mentor to learn from, and Grogu would be in this same boat. Perhaps we would be able to see Din, Rey, and Grogu seeking holocrons of the old Jedi together, not realizing that most of the holocrons are Sith, one of which turns out to be Revan's holocron, a nifty way to return to canon a very compelling character and broaden the already awesome story arc. And now that we're not focused on the Skywalker family drama, we can expand the story to show more than just an A storyline with insignificant, underfunded rebels, and thus we can have references to the struggles of non-rebels, see people with actual means at their disposal, with actual reasons for their struggles. To wit, as the Imperial First Order remnants vie for power, Grand Admirals Thrawn, who to this point had been deployed in the unknown regions and had no reason to return until now, according to legends, and according to the new canon, he was trapped in a singularity, and Grand Admiral Daala, who to this point spent all her time escaping the Maul research complex, which was made to disappear as the First Order showed its face by a few in the New Republic that had made it their mission to purposely make the horrors of that science foundation and the complex itself as inescapable as possible to prevent potential allies of the First Order or any enemies in general of the New Republic from finding and exploiting the technological terrors by using a series of hyperspace disrupting interdiction devices, perhaps scavenged from an old Imperial interdiction cruiser. It is important to establish backgrounds to know what is going on so that a coherent filmography can be made. Anyway, Thrawn, Daala, Mara, et al. Fight over the destiny of the galaxy, all knowing the inescapable needs for a united front against the Vong, all three of which knew something wicked this way comes. Wrong franchise. Anyway, during all of this hullabaloo, Mara eventually finds Rey and vows to train her as a Grey Jedi and build a grand Jedi Order that Luke would be proud of. As I said, there is a great need to plan things well out in advance, or at least have a map, so I propose for the next two movies, 11, A Galaxy Fractured. Now, as we have a good foundation, perhaps with a planned series in between, we could start this movie with the real rising action. 11 could open up with Mara realizing that decades spent in isolation and cut off from the Force had reduced her abilities, leaving her with the greatest knowledge of the time and possessing a knowledge and tactical mind which is unmatched, with training in both dark and light side techniques, but an inky dark past and rusty Force skills. Not to mention the fact that she was the secret left hand of the despised Emperor. She was now persona non grata. All of these things combined posed a significant hurdle to her uniting the galaxy under her banner. So, as she knows what needs to be done, she fades from the galactic forefront, seeking a way to unite the galaxy, even as a puppet master if needed. As a true-blooded Mandalorian, as I said, I had a plan, and knowing where the helm of Mandalore is, Mara has to assume the mantle of Mandalore, retrieve the Darksaber, and revive the old Death Watch to make a new future for the galaxy. Hopefully, with the Mandalorians truly united with the Jedi at long last. Meanwhile, others seek unity in their own ways, stretching the galaxy's already threadbare resources to their breaking point. Followed by probably another series. Hey, we could do this all day long. Yeah, I know, wrong franchise. We would flow right in to episode 12, Unity. This film would open with the galaxy divided as it had never been before. The seeds for a Grand Republic, led by Lando and the gang, an empire revived, headed by Thrawn and Daala, and a Nova Mandalore, led by Mara, and a bunch of other scattered independent worlds, united by the common threat of the Vong. The seeds are sown for an epic showdown. And so, a series of scattered counteroffensives starts to stem the tide of the already oppressive invasion. And, to break with tradition, perhaps a fourth film, The Beskar Age, where an uneasy peace spreads its wings across the galaxy as it finally slips into perhaps a minor golden age, perhaps a grand golden age, but leaves the door open to more. In cinema past, before television, there were serials, movies that were effectively series. This could revive that practice. Yeah, I know currently movie theaters are a no-go, but we do have Disney Plus. We do have other streaming services. It's always a good idea to have a plan. Yes, none of the trilogies so far have been planned. A New Hope was originally just a one-off, and followed by The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi. And the prequel trilogy, let's just say it wasn't one of the best. But with planning, things could actually be epic, as proven with Disney's other big property buy, the MCU. Now, I say we follow Favreau's and Feige's lead, not Jar Jar Kennedy's. Thank you for watching.